Hi, and thanks for tuning in to the CBA Podcast, a place where we chat about our own recent achievements in the area of electronics, software and mechanical engineering, and more likely than not, give excuses for not having done anything at all. Hello and welcome back to another episode. This time it's going to be a longish list of short topics, which I will try to segue together. So we'll see how that goes. There's not going to be a teardown thing this episode, so if you're waiting for that or if you like that, then sorry. I think next time there will be something, but this time no. Last time I talked about feedback or lack of feedback we got, and as a matter of fact we don't get any feedback by email, but you can be the first. There's an email address at the podcast.cba.si page, so write in and let me or let us know what you think. I say there's no feedback, but that's not true. There's always a small team of people who I can ask for advice and who give feedback and who give suggestions, what could be better, what could be removed or shorter or longer, stuff like that. So that's, let's say, the quality assurance team of the CBA podcast, and I greatly appreciate it. So thank you very much. You know who you are, so thanks. And talking of teamwork, I went to the Maker Fair in Eindhoven a couple of weeks ago. I went to the actual event, which was 2 days, I think officially 2 days normal event, and it was a school event, something like that, school day. I also went there to help with the building and the setting up of the stuff, and actually I like that more than the actual event itself. So you get to see what goes on behind the scenes a little bit. You get to meet a lot of interesting people, do work, and I had a very good time there. So that was 1 day worth of work. I'll do it again next time, and I enjoyed that very much. So this is another example where where I can enjoy an event more if I participate in it. So there seems to be a common theme nowadays. The event itself was nice as well. And one of the things I like there is when people make progress with their project. So some people are standing there 1 year and are standing there the next year, and the project is basically the same. That's fine. Everyone can do what he or she wants. Some people make progress. So there was, for example, one guy who made a 3D printer. It's a fairly big one with a 1 meter by 1 meter work bed or something like that. Now, last time he had it working, and I think he was 3D printing. He was 3D printing this year as well, but in addition, he was making portraits from software he had made himself. So his point was to draw a whole portrait or a drawing, for example, with one pen stroke. So you put the extruder in this case on the bed and you draw one line of plastic basically to make a whole drawing, and you can do shading and light and dark areas completely that way. So that's quite interesting to see. I never saw that, so it's interesting stuff. So the lesson learned here for myself is to keep innovating, I guess, to keep it interesting. And talking about social tech events, I went to the SCC Retro Division meeting a couple of weeks ago as well, which was super nice. I like it very much, and I'm very sorry that it's over. I would like it to last a few more hours or maybe 2 days or something like that, because there's a lot of interesting people to talk to and a lot of stuff to see and a lot of stuff I never did, and a lot of really in-depth technical stuff. I like that. People who can talk about assembly or microseconds delay or memory access times or stuff like that. So it's very in-depth. I like it. And yeah, it's a nice crowd. Not too big, but very diverse. And one of the people there was an actual listener of this podcast. So I got to ask him how he liked it and maybe if he had suggestions and so on. Talked about that a little bit. So yeah, that's super nice. One of the 10 to 20 people who listen to this stuff, let's say that. So thank you very much. Now they sometimes give presentations there. I think I've only been there 2 times, but that's what I heard. And this time there was a presentation, among other things, about the Gigatron homebrew TTL VGA computer again. And one of the Gigatron guys was there. Talked with him, also very nice. And next time I'll do my own little talk. It's the 24th of November, so I have to prepare for that a little bit. And another thing, I noticed that some people there are into Forth programming. Now, Forth is a language that's really not accessible to me. I tried a few times to make something in Forth. I just give up. At 5 minutes I can spend on it and then I give up because it's too weird. I think there's a division as well, HCC 4th division, and I think they have a meeting next weekend. So I'll probably, if I have time, go there and just let one of the people there show me how to make a bigger program in 4th, just to break through a mental barrier or something like that, because it's a little bit insane. It should be a very nice language. I think I should like it, but I don't, because it's too weird. So I just have to flip a switch or something like that in my head. No idea. Now at the retro division meeting, there were a couple of home computers, just 1980s home computers, let's say that. And I talked with one of the people there, and I think one of the problems, or maybe challenges, I don't know, of stuff like that is that it's not very accessible to younger people, or people not 40 years old or 50 years old who grew up with that stuff. So apparently what he said, and what I can believe, is that young people are just not interested in that stuff. Maybe, I hope it's because they don't know how it works. So one of the things I would like to do, and I'm trying to do, is to make stuff like that, and that is home computers and all technology, more accessible, because an old machine sitting on a basic prompt with a keyboard and waiting for input in the form of typed in text, unless you're really into that computer, you're not going to know what to type, and it doesn't look very appealing maybe. So I would like to make it a little bit more accessible. Maybe put some nice stuff on the screen and make it a little bit more inviting to come over and touch the machine, for example. And talking about accessibility, my previous Retro Challenge project, which is an online competition, I'll talk about a little bit more in a few moments. My previous project for that was a cartridge adapter. It's a plug-in module you can plug into a home computer in a Commodore 64, and it will show you a demo screen basically. It'll show you whatever you want to show. So you can put a small program on that card, plug it into the Commodore 64, and it will run that until you press spacebar. So you can also put welcome text there, for example, or graphics that are inviting, or in one sentence what the computer is about, or show a picture or something like that. Make it a little bit more interesting than a basic prompt or an attract screen of a game that doesn't do too much. Last time I was at the Bonami Home Computer Museum. I put one of those cards in one of their machines to test it basically, and then I left, and now I came back a week ago, so to see if it still ran, and indeed it still ran, so I was very happy, showed it to someone else. Yeah, that home computer museum is very nice. The owners are nice. I talked with some guy I didn't know beforehand who fixed arcade machines and fixed the hardware, so that was a very nice talk. I'll probably see him again in the future. Yeah, basically had a good day there. One of the guys at the Retro Division meeting was a past participant in a Retro Challenge. And talking about Retro Challenge, the current Retro Challenge, the one from September 2018, has just finished. And I helped a little bit by providing halftime commands 2 weeks ago, and just now I finished with final commands. So that means reading all 25 participants' blogs for that month and writing a little paragraph about what they did, and so other people can read that instead of having to wade through a lot of pages. So my own project for that, because I'm also a participant, failed miserably. I wanted to make a small demo for the Home Computer Museum in Helmond in the Netherlands. I'll still do that, but I'm way too late. It should be finished by the end of September, but it's nowhere near finished. I just made 10 lines of code or something like that, and then the rest has to be done. So we'll see. What I did do for my own project was make a few bitmaps to be shown on a Commodore 64 screen, and for a previous project I converted these bitmaps using Ruby to Commodore 64 bitmaps, let's say that. So use Ruby as converter language, converter program. And talking of Ruby, last time I complained about not having a scripting language of choice, so I finally settled on Ruby. Looks nice enough. I made a little quick start guide for myself with just read it in 5 minutes, and then you know enough Ruby to at least make a little program. So what I'm doing now is thinking of a problem like how to convert a binary file into hex or something like that. Print the hex content of a binary file. Then I think of the problem and make it in a few lines, and then I write it down, and eventually I'll put it in a web page so I can read that. in 5 or 10 minutes and then get up to speed quickly. Some of the resources I found useful while learning Ruby, which I'm still doing, is the website rubylearning.com. There are a lot of very good examples. I think it's a very good text and it's very readable, not too long. There's the interactive tool RI. I think that's read info or something like that. And there's ruby-doc.org, which has all the official documentation of the API. But what I'm missing really is something like apropos. I think it's called that. Every Unix system, or at least every Linux and BSD system that I know, has an apropos tool, which I think it's a command line switch of manual page, a man command. So what it does is basically search for a text you pass on the command line in one sentence descriptions of each manual page, and that gives you a list of all the manual pages that have that word that you typed in their one sentence description. So I'm really missing that. So I still find myself Googling for stuff, and that's nice, but I'd like to have some command line tool to do the same. Maybe I'll find something, no idea. If you know anything, just let me know by email. And talking of segues to glue topics together, I made a little portable voltage reference for myself, so it plugs into a USB port, and it has on the other side 2 banana sockets with 2 reference voltages and 2 pot meters, and you can dial pot meter and control the reference voltage between 0 and 5 volts. So there's one op amp and a gap inside, I think, and that's it. I'll put the schematics and some pictures in the show notes. I made it on Vero board or Perf board or whatever it's called, and after that I covered it completely in hot glue. So it doesn't look very pretty, but at least you can just toss it in the backpack or toss it in the bag and not worry about it being broken. So that voltage reference is a little bit of a toy. We'll see how useful it is in practice. And talking of toys, inspired by one of the Retro Challenge participants who used a Saley Logic USB logic analyzer to spy on modem signals to see what the modem was doing because he wanted to emulate it. I remembered that I had a very simple, cheap USB logic analyzer as well. It was the Open Bench Logic Sniffer. I'll put a link to that in the show notes. I think it's from Dangerous Prototypes, or at least it's hosted on the Dangerous Prototypes website. I always thought it was a little bit of a toy, and it probably is, so I never really use it. I never put in any effort to use it. But I put the latest firmware on there and use it with PulseView software, in which you can see the traces of each channel underneath each other. I think all the USB PC logic analyzer software looks a little bit alike, signals under each other. PulseView is no exception. And to test everything, I use that logic analyzer in combination with the Rigol DS6000 demo board, which is a very nice board. It has a big FPGA on board and some DACs and buffers and filters. It can output a lot of analog signals, modulated signals, video signals, fault pulses, missing pulses, bursts, spikes, but also digital signals and protocols, so it can output a fixed string using SPI or I2C or RS-232 or CAN or FlexBus or whatever. So that's very convenient. So you can simply plug the logic analyzer to that board, to the correct pin, and you know the board is outputting I2C, so you can see if you can see that using the logic analyzer. So it's to test, the demo board is meant to test scopes and test logic analyzers. So that's very nice actually. I'm happy I bought that a long time ago and I can use it now very well. The Open Bench Logic Sniffer itself is nice. It's a little bit, I got it for free basically because it was just sitting on my shelf, so I'm happy, right? I don't need anything else for now. It claims a 200 MHz sample frequency, but it doesn't do that. When I configure for 200 MHz, I start making mistakes and gives unreliable results, so 100 MHz is fine. However, it only has 24K sample memory if you use 8 channels out of the available 32, and that's enough for me, 8. 24K samples. So that means when you're sampling at 25 megahertz, let's say that, you have 1 millisecond of samples. So that's not a whole lot. The PulseView software that I use with it can trigger using simple triggers, a high and low level trigger, or the rising and falling edge that is, but it cannot trigger on protocol contents, so that is probably enough. We'll see how that goes. So that logic analyzer is nice when you need to look at hardware and need a little bit more than 4 channels of your scope. And talking of hardware, so the segues are getting a little bit too desperate now, I think I'll stop it. The previous time I told that I got a angle grinder and didn't use it yet, except last week I did, and it's super cool. And I got up a lot of old stuff I had laying in the backyard that was too long, metal parts, so that they fit in the garbage bin, and it's a super nice tool. I'm happy that I bought it. I asked Piotr for some tips because he uses that stuff all the time. And he said one thing is that you don't want to get the blade stuck and then simply apply power because you're gonna lose an eye. So that's all I did basically. There are some upcoming events, which I will list now. There's the HCC 4th Division User Group Meeting in Bilthoven in the Netherlands. That's the 13th October, very soon. Very soon as well is the Vintage Computer Festival Berlin, and the weekend of the 13th October as well. Then, next week, this very podcast will be 1 year old. And maybe I'll look back a little bit about what went right and what went wrong and why this still exists, or similar stuff, so we'll see about that in a week. And finally, there's the Overkill Festival taking place the weekend of the 27th October. I think it's a 2-day or 3-day event. I think 3 actually, or 48 hours over 3 days, something like that. So I volunteered to help with building up or tearing down. I didn't hear from them, so I poked them again, sent them another email because I really want to get involved in that as well. It sounds, looks really nice. So that was all for now. For more information, links and previous episodes, visit podcast.cba.si. Stay tuned, thanks for listening, and goodbye.